Welcome back. I'm Maggie, your host of the Neighbors Helping Neighbors podcast from Father Joe's Villages. This is a continuing series where we explore homelessness, its causes, and solutions to the issues. Our guests include experts and leaders in the space, people with lived experience and unique perspectives on homelessness. If you'd like to learn more about our mission, visit us at neighbor.org and follow us on social media at Father Joe's Villages. Today, we're focusing on breaking the cycle of homelessness, what that means, how it's being accomplished, and how you can get involved. Who better to explore this topic with than the subject matter experts themselves? Join me in welcoming Afira DeVries, CEO of the Monarch School, and my co-host, President and CEO of Father Joe's Villages, Deacon Jim. Welcome.
Thank you so
Good
much.
to be with you.
Yes,
Great to have you here.
I'm delighted
Absolutely.
to
We've
be
been looking
here.
forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to have this space with you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Afira, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved at the Monarch School.
Okay, well, I am the president and CEO of the Monarch School Project. I'm not an educator, though. I'm a sociologist by education.
Cool.
And I've spent really the majority of my career working toward identifying and addressing the biggest gaps that we face in our society around social challenges. I come from a pretty I come from an amazing family with a lot of challenges in my youth, and I just kind of grew up with the sense that this is a space I wanted to occupy in adulthood to do the best I could to address problems. So I worked for the United Way for a very long time, and then I took a job globally doing international work, really identifying and scaling the world's most effective social programs. And when COVID hit, I literally had a night where I was just saying, I don't want to be strapped to my computer doing this work anymore. I want something I could put my arms around again. And the next morning, I was contacted as though, divine intervention presented
Right.
itself. And I was contacted about the opportunity to come and run the Monarch School. And, 6 weeks later, here I was doing
Wow.
this beautiful work. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And the Monarch School is a little piece of magic on earth. It is the only public school in the United States that exclusively supports and nurtures the education and social development of unhoused students. So all of my kiddos are experiencing homelessness in one way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's great. That's right.
Deacon, tell us about yourself and your scope of work at Father Joe's.
And I met Afira, by the way. She had just arrived and COVID had just hit.
Mhm.
And in the midst of it, we just there was a connection there.
Yeah.
And part of the connection, I must say, by the way, is that we're both Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
All right. And that helps in the whole
Boricua.
Boricuas.
Yeah.
Boricuas. And so we just hit it off right off the bat. And that was 4 years ago, I think.
Mhm. Almost,
Time
yeah.
just flies. I'm so proud of what you're doing at the Monarch School.
Thank you so much. I'm proud of what you do. It's a mutual admiration society here.
Oh yeah. Well, because it takes a village. It takes a community to
It
get
sure
done what we
does.
need to get done.
It does.
And just by way of overview, I always like to give an overview for the viewers and the listeners. We're entering our 75th year at Father Joe's
Wow.
Villages, right? And we've been in this space of homelessness. We're the longest in the space of homelessness here in Southern California, and we're uniquely positioned because we have the broadest and the most comprehensive programs in order to get to all aspects of the uniqueness of the individual, basically, because each one is at a certain journey or part of their journey out of homelessness, I like to say. So we have a federally qualified health center, and health is so important. If you don't have your health, you really don't have anything else, right? So health is very important. So we have not only primary care, but we also have behavioral health clinic, which includes substance use disorder. It also includes psychiatric care. We have a dental clinic as well. So it's incredible. It's one of our gems. And maybe we'll touch upon a little bit one of the projects on which we're working now, which is detox, which is so very, very necessary in this community. So hopefully we'll touch upon it later on during the segment. And then we have our shelter system. We have more shelter beds than any other homeless services provider, about 1,000 at this point in various locations. And shelters are important because it's a way of getting people out of off the streets in the immediacy and start working with them comprehensively in order to break that cycle. And that's what it's all about, to break that cycle.
Mhm.
To serve meals, something as simple as meals, 1 million meals a year, right? 2 dining rooms, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's always such an important element as well. We know that a shelter in the end is not a home.
Mhm.
And so we are blessed to be able to be affordable housing developers as well. Our most recent, which we opened 2 years ago, is St. Teresa of Calcutta, 407 homes. taken over 500 people off the streets. That's incredible. We're blessed to have been able to do that. And we have a number, we have five um, different facilities that are in the works right now in the pipeline. And we hope to start breaking ground on those first quarter or second quarter of next year and into the following years as well. So that's incredibly important. We have an employment center. With employment, with marketable skills comes a job, right? And income and then self-sufficiency. So the vocational training we have within the employment center is extremely important. And then we have our therapeutic childcare center. In the therapeutic childcare center, we have kids there literally from new births to mothers who are with us. They're pregnant. Comes time to give birth, they go off to the hospital for a couple of days and then come back with the baby. So we're blessed to be able to help them prenatally and postnatally and then beyond. So we have a preschool program that supports them. And then once they become school age, they go to different schools and they go to Monarch
They
as an
sure do.
example. So we're going to focus on that and the after school activities that we have because we support them through age 18. Just last year, over 1,000 children we supported up to age 18 from new births at Father Joe's Villages, over across 600 families, because the families are an important element of it, and we'll talk about that as well. Um, with to build familial relationships, it's important because then they can go forward in a strong way. So that's an important and transitional age youth after age 18, from 18 to 25. We supported over 800 of those last year as well. That's a tender age as well. They think they're adults. Legally, they're adults, but we know otherwise.
We
We
sure
who are
do.
parents,
Yeah.
right, around this table, and so we know, and so that's an important element as well. So that's a whirlwind of
Mhm.
what we do, and you can see the comprehensiveness of our programs. But we're gonna focus on children today, and we're going to focus on the education aspect of that, especially.
Well, I'll say this though before we get into that. There's a lot of pride in the partnership that we have with Father Joe's because there is a uniqueness to the work that you do. It is intentionally focused on the whole family.
Mhm.
And the capacity for you all to provide supports from birth to adulthood is actually fairly rare in the space
Mhm.
of homelessness services.
Mhm.
And it makes a huge difference for us. Just about on average, 14% of our students are in your care when they leave us.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it makes a difference that you're providing such a comprehensive set of services, at least for us. It makes
Right.
our work just a
Right.
little easier.
Yeah, I agree. And the partnership is what's important
Mhm.
because what we know of these kids as they're with us spills over into the care that you give them and vice versa, right?
Mhm.
So that partnership and the lines of communication are extremely important in order to be very effective in their lives. And
That's
that's what
right.
it's all about.
Mhm. As we say all the time, it takes a village.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So tell us about Monarch School, your mission, and what it really means to break the cycle of homelessness.
Well, people think they hear the word school and they think that that is what we are comprehensively, and it isn't. I mean, the reality is the academic component of the work is critically important, but it's not really the priority. It matters, but when our students come through our front door, they're experiencing something that they're generally not going to experience in a traditional school setting, which is a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, a sense of community, and the release of the need to hide,
Mhm.
which is often what students feel when they're in settings that are traditional because nobody wants to be known for their circumstances. And a kid doesn't know how to be anything other than what the world tells them that they're meant to be. And if you call a kid homeless, that's what they think they are.
Mhm.
And so when they come to Monarch School, they get to be all that they're meant to be. They get to cultivate their potential. They get to understand their individual gifts because everybody's experiencing similar circumstances and conditions. And at Monarch School, because they're all experiencing the same thing, they get to be who they're meant to be
Mhm.
and set that baggage down at the door. And so our work is really very much about the social and emotional and life skill development of a student in the effort to cultivate that internal sense of safety and capacity and to feel like they've got something to offer that will transcend the circumstances that they're in. The work is really primarily about supporting and partnering with the student and their family. Our work is not just about the kiddo, just like you at Father Joe's. The work is really very much about making sure that the entire family gets the support that they need to eventually achieve a sense of stability. But the primary focus is ensuring that each of our students leaves us with the belief that they can break the cycles that they've been afforded in their life. It's also really important for us to remind the world and to remind the community itself that parents and caregivers that find themselves in these situations are generally exceptional parents, just like
Right.
everybody wants to be, and their circumstances shouldn't dictate the way we view them. And so, so much of our work is about helping them believe in themselves as parents and caregivers. Everything from, on our site, you can find and you will find showers and laundry facilities, but you'll also find a team of people working with parents to consider opportunities for permanent supportive housing and resume building and access to career and parenting classes and even cultivating their own artistic and creative capacity as adults.
Mhm.
All of that stuff happens at the Monarch School, and it
Mhm.
shows, and shows in the way our kids succeed, and shows in the way families become stable.
Mhm. So you're treating the whole family and you're meeting them where they are because each family has different and specific needs.
Mhm. Yeah, in the space of social care, there is a model for supporting families that is generally outdated, in my observation, and it's the deficit-based approach, right?
Mhm.
So you come through the doors of a social service organization and you're asked, "What's wrong with you? What do you need? What are your problems?" At Monarch School, we are asset-based, we're strength-based, which means we're working with, not for, the
Mhm.
family. And that approach means what's good? What gifts do you already have? What relationships can you rely on? What strengths do you have? And how can we cultivate them to solve the other challenges that you're facing? That's working with. And that energy is dignified.
Mhm.
That instills a sense of mutual partnership and allows the family to maintain their dignity and to feel respected by the environment that they're in.
Mhm.
So all of our programs are centered around being asset based.
Mhm.
And that includes the way we engage with our students and the way we engage with their parents and caregivers. And it makes a huge difference. It means that they get to walk away from us every day, retaining that sense of dignity. And dignity is the precursor to any measure of hope we hope to instill in anyone ever.
Right.
That's good.
Without dignity, you
Mhm.
cannot be hopeful.
That's
Mhm.
good, and that's so important. Dignity. I mean, we have we function by way of our creed: compassion, respect, empathy, empowerment, and dignity. So
Mhm.
that's it. Their circumstance does not define them. The fact that they're
Mhm.
unhoused, that does not define them.
Mhm.
And we find time and time again that if you apply the right resources, tap into their potential, it's incredible what the return that you receive,
That's right.
and it's across the board, whether it's the adults or the children. The children who come to us are 4 times more apt to be homeless and how unhoused as adults, unless we mitigate those circumstances, right? It's incredible to watch, especially kids are so resilient. I'm
Mhm.
sure you found this, right?
Oh,
Especially,
absolutely.
so you apply the right resources, the right love and compassion. It's incredible how they bounce back, and it makes all the difference in the world.
That's right. And, the job really is to inspire a sense of belief in themselves and then get out of the way.
Mhm.
Get out of the way. Every kid has a core set of gifts. They don't always know what they are. Our job as adults, no matter who the kid is or where they go to school, is to allow them to believe that something is possible for them, help them find what that something is, and then get out of their way and
Mhm.
allow them to pursue that. And that's what we do, not just for our students, but also for their families,
Mhm.
so that all we are doing is creating space for them to cultivate their best selves.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
It's not rocket science, but it
That's
is
right.
unusual. Isn't that
Right,
Right,
funny?
right,
right,
right, right,
right.
right, and it's so necessary.
Yeah.
Because the structures and the resources are there, but without the infusion of that dignity and that love and that feeling of safety, it's just an uphill battle, or it
Right,
can be.
Sure.
right,
Would you
right, right.
wanna go back somewhere that made you feel like you were less than because you needed help in that moment? Of course you wouldn't.
Right.
But if you go to a place, no matter what the place is, and you feel like who you are is being seen, you're gonna go back, and you're gonna keep going back until it's no longer needed anymore.
Mhm.
Right,
That's the
Mhm.
goal.
right. And there's so many of these kids who are in situations and are in schools, as an example, up and through college age, actually, where they are unhoused and they're sitting next to peers who are not, who are
Mhm.
housed,
Mhm.
right? And as you said, they don't want that to get out, right?
Right.
So they just a struggle in that regard. I particularly am so impressed with students who are able to go to school in that circumstance, right? And they're then studying outside on the street or in a car, or
Mhm.
and yet they're excelling in school, right? Isn't that is that
Oh my
not
It's
gosh.
impressive?
remarkable.
It is
That's
Yeah.
remarkable.
I
Yes.
have students that will come to school, bring their younger siblings, get up at the crack of dawn to be there on time, and then stay to play sports and
Wow.
do their homework. And they don't even get back home till 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they're
Mm.
back the next morning. And any of us who have kids, it sometimes I can't help but compare my own children. And I'm like, man, I couldn't get my kid out of bed this morning. And this child was just here 5 hours ago. But yes, and it's that dedication, that cultivation of self belief I mean, it's inspiring, right? It gets me out of bed every
Mhm,
day.
mhm.
They can do it, I can do it.
That's
Any
right.
of us
Mhm.
can do it.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Mhm. What are some of the most significant challenges that you're seeing for your unhoused students and their families, and how do you address those to support their academic and personal growth?
Well, some of this isn't going to be a tremendous surprise to hear, right?
Mhm.
The lack of affordability that is inherent to the condition of homelessness, particularly in the state of California and in our region, is a significant challenge
Mhm.
because, upwards of 80% of our families have some form of employment. And it's just insufficient to the task when you consider what it takes to get into stable housing,
Mhm.
right? First, last month, security, furnishing, it's really hard. So set that aside and understand that that is the primary concern for us to be dealing with as a society. Then you deal with the underlying factors that have to do with the implications of domestic violence. And when a woman has been relying on spouse or partner and realizes she's needing to make a difficult choice
Mm.
between supporting and stabilizing family and being able to be safe, guess what? She's going to make the right choice more often than not, and it's going to lead to being unsheltered.
Mhm.
Then you add substance abuse, then you add, being involved, justice involved. All of those compounding factors create an environment that simply spirals for so many families. The implications for our
Mm.
students are generally health related, physical or mental health related, where, and it's a huge percentage of my students have asthma or are
Wow.
struggling with, diabetes or chronic illnesses. And then the mental health considerations, which we view as critical to their development
Mhm.
also. We have a really comprehensive on-site clinical mental health program for our students and their caregivers because if you can't get
Mm.
past the trauma and work toward healing, you're not going to
Mhm.
learn a darn thing.
Mhm.
I don't care what classroom you're in and what your
Mhm.
teacher's doing, you can't be there.
Mhm.
And of course, they're dealing with complex trauma, considering the mobility of their lives and the situations that they're often growing up in.
Mhm.
So those factors make a huge difference, and they're not the same things that a kid in a traditional school setting that goes home to sleep in the same bed every night
Mhm.
is dealing with.
Mhm.
Sure, kids everywhere have mental health concerns to be considerate of, but complex trauma is a very special kind of trauma. It's the kind that defines you and follows you into adulthood if it isn't addressed,
Right.
which is
Right.
why it's so important for us
Right.
to have that kind of comprehensive programming on our campus.
And what does that programming look like? What are some examples of it?
Right. So we have, again, a clinical team, right? I have licensed clinicians, associate clinicians, and trainees on site at Monarch School. And we do therapy in really unique ways. We've got the traditional stuff, right? The one on
Mhm.
one counseling, we do group therapy, we do family therapy, but we also do some really interesting things. Like we deploy our clinicians to play basketball
Yeah.
in the court with the kids and be present for them far beyond the 1 hour of clinical one-on-one time. And that consistent presence does two really important things. One is it builds rapport and relationship, creates an opportunity for the child to let their guard down a little bit and feel connected
Mhm.
to at least one adult on campus. And then the other piece of it is having the consistency of moving through a therapeutic process,
Mhm.
even if they don't really know what's happening,
Right.
right? You catch a kid doing something that they enjoy and is fun and cathartic for them, like creative youth development, art expression, or athletics, you are going to catch them when their guard's down enough to be able to release some of that trauma and have conversations that are
Mhm.
healing for them. So we have a really creative approach to mental health. It's consistent, it's daily, and it is impactful
Right.
because it is sustainable for them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You come to
Mhm.
school, you're going to be supported in myriad ways, and that's one of them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're going home to parents who also don't like to let their guard down
Mhm.
because they've been disappointed time and time again. They've been abuses and whatever else. We find that at Father Joe's villages, right? So they don't let their guard down, right? So if they unless we work with them as you do as well, then the kids won't let their guard down either.
That's right.
I mean, we had a what comes to mind is we had a parent, single parent, who came in to us, and their child, who was 22 months old, I believe, didn't walk. Right. And initially, we thought there was something pathologically wrong, and also the child didn't make eye contact and smile, and only to find out that there was nothing pathologically wrong with the child. The child had always been kept in a stroller. Right.
Mhm.
Think about this. Why? Your initial reaction is to think, well, that's abusive, right? Well, no, but that was the
No,
safest place for that child on the
that's right.
street, right?
That's right.
And so, and then to further complicate it, the mother had draped a cloth over the stroller, so the child didn't have social interaction. Again, to keep the child safe, and didn't have social interaction. It was incredible when the clinicians worked with this child over a period of time, number of months, how incredibly, again, kids are resilient, kid running up and down the hall, driving everybody crazy, and smiling and laughing as they should. Again, it's to that point, and we had to
Yeah.
work with the mother as well, because the mother, think about how she was thinking, right? To your
Because she's
point,
trying to do the best she can and
right,
provide safety for her child,
right,
and that's
right,
what that was the best, that was the thing she could control in that moment.
right.
One of the most powerful moments, one of the most enduring memories I think I will ever have in my career is the process that I witnessed and experienced with one student that joined our campus mid-year, young middle schooler. And before we even met this child, we had heard child doesn't make eye contact. The child is not receptive to learning, really not incredibly verbal or vocal unless causing trouble or problems, and is a known insomniac, never
Mm,
sleeps.
Oh.
mm,
It's a pretty significant challenge for
mm,
this kiddo. Gets enrolled, and over a period of about 3 months, the kinds of interventions I talked about with the mental health continuum of support and just access to cathartic work, cathartic healing like artistic expression, recognizing that everybody around him was dealing with similar circumstances, nothing about him really stood out. One day, I was walking through campus as I do, and I was walking through the playground, and it was hot out, and the kids are out there playing basketball. It's not a huge playground, so they're all, kind of crammed into the same space, and it's noisy. There's music playing, and I look over, and I see this baby laying on the ground in the deepest, most peaceful sleep
Wow.
you could ever conceive. Like, I was
Wow.
envious of the sleep. And I thought to myself, and I started to tear up and cry because I thought to myself, this might seem weird to people,
mm,
but I see this as an extraordinary example of healing. Because this child who was a known insomniac 3 months ago feels so safe and connected and supported that he was able to let his guard down
mhm,
and
Mhm.
sleep.
mhm,
Just that by itself is such a powerful message about
Mhm.
the importance of creating the right environment for
mhm,
kids.
mhm.
Mhm.
Well, and these kids and the parents included, right? They don't sleep when they're on house and on the streets, right?
No.
Because especially women are afraid of being accosted, right? And yes, insomnia sets in. How can a child be healthy, to your point,
Right.
and how can they learn if they're not getting the right nutrition, if they're in this type of environment, right? So yeah, absolutely. So providing that resource, the resources and what's necessary, it's not, like you said, it's not rocket science, right?
It's not. And also, their reaction to the world isn't rocket science, right? It's survival.
Mm,
That's survival mode. If you're going to choose between safety and sleep, you're going to choose safety.
Mm.
You're going to protect yourself and your mom and your siblings. That becomes your watch. That's the
Mhm.
watch you're on.
Mhm.
So, we give our students space to let down that kind of guard and that kind of responsibility. And there's something really beautiful about that.
right.
Deacon, does this align with what you're seeing at Father Joe's Villages? And can you tell us about the wraparound services that you provide, including those for families?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, think about it. When the kids come to us, and Afira, I'm sure you experience this. They're academically, emotionally, socially delayed in so many ways, And so we target the services to their unique needs. The word uniqueness has been used before, right, in this session here. And that's so very, very important because you don't want to take a one size fits all approach. Not everyone needs extensive services, and others, because they may be at a different place, and others do need extensive services. So the assessments aspect of this is very important when a child comes to us, right? We want to make sure that we assess what they absolutely need, and then we apply those resources. So some kids, as an example, may need speech pathology. Right? And my daughter's a speech pathologist, actually, so I know a little bit about speech pathology just from her. And but that's an important element, because if you don't tackle that, or you don't address that, that sets the child back so drastically, right? They don't feel comfortable then in the settings, right? So that's an important element as well. So, but then also the cognitive situation is assessed, and then the resources necessary there are utilized. Some of them need occupational therapy, right? So, and some children need resources, resource teachers in a sense. And so, and what we do with them after school, after Monarch sends them back to us, as an example, right? Be it, as you mentioned, any artistic work that we do with them, or just mentoring and helping them with their homework, which I know Monarch School does as well. It's just, again, meeting them where they are. It's whatever they need, we'll provide. And the family aspect of this is so important. And so just making sure there's role modeling, to making sure that parents understand how to parent, because some people, you parent, you're both parents, right? And well, you may not think about it, when most of us don't, but we parent according to how we've been parented. If we're blessed, and I was blessed, my parents were great parents. That's necessarily perfect, but they were great parents. And so we parent. I like to think I parent in a decent way. My kids always tell me they're in therapy, but they're kidding. But just to get after me. But the point is that these a lot of these parents haven't had good role models, right? So it's helping with them with that, so that and that's where role modeling comes in, where the psychologist, or the social worker, really visualizes them in any setting, and then makes recommendations in a very constructive way, right? And to your point, that's what the parents want. The parents want this. They want this feedback, right? Because they want to be good parents in the whole process.
That's so true. And one of the things that we've found and is core to the way we deliver similar services or partnership services, judgment is an incompatible concept to compassion and partnership.
Mhm.
And so most parents love their kids and want to be the strongest, most effective adult they can be for their child. And yet they don't always know how best to do that.
Mhm.
And when you can honor that love and honor that intention and provide them with the resources and supports that they need to develop in whatever ways they need to or want to, now you're hitting on all cylinders. It's the robbery of dignity, and it's the implications of judgment that often perpetuates so many of these cycles. And sometimes it's really just as simple as doing what you just described, which is, we know you love and care. Here are some ideas or some thoughts as to how you could be even more impactful
Mhm.
and even more present for your child.
Mhm.
It's if we were all effective at doing that as social care organizations, it could be transformative. And I'm so grateful that you
Absolutely.
do the work that you do the way you do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's those finite adjustments, kind of a paradigm shift that we really need to implement. In addition to other things, what would you two say are the most contributing factors to homelessness?
Well, I think I was going to say you go first, but
No,
man, do
no,
I
you
have
go.
a soapbox on this one.
Yeah.
And I won't go crazy with it, but we need to recognize as a state that our conditions and circumstances here are unique and different from the rest of the country. That's evidenced by the fact that 50% of the nation's unhoused population lives in the state of California. And we have to decide that we are no longer interested in ignoring that fact, recognize it, embrace it, and do something about it related to affordable housing and mixed income development. The solutions for homelessness largely have to do with breaking cycles, and those cycles are best broken by creating living environments that offer a mixed income environment so that people from all walks of life can share amenities in a neighborhood and that we are intentionally offering affordability and supporting families that are emerging from homelessness with the baseline services and support so that they're not revisiting that condition.
Mhm.
That's the work. It's expensive, it's long term, it's not evidenced overnight, but it is how you address homelessness at the root. And it's important in time for our community and for the state to get focused on addressing those underlying conditions.
Deacon
I
Jim, I
I
imagine you have
I
things
agree
to say.
wholeheartedly. Oh, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. The economics is the number one reason people are falling into homelessness. And you're right, this region is unique in that regard, right? I mean, they're homeless across the United States. And in other areas, economics play a part as well, like in New York as an example, or New York having the largest homeless population in the nation. We here in San Diego have the fourth largest homeless population, right? If you think about that. And it's the economics. You alluded to it before as well. The one-bedroom apartment median um, rent is about $2,500. The rental vacancy at this point is at about 3.2%, which means no sooner does an apartment come on the market, it gets scooped up, and it's far out of reach for the people who we serve, right? So affordable housing is absolutely important, which is why a number of years ago we made a commitment that we would deploy 2,000 affordable housing units into the market, right? Through either new construction like St. Teresa of Calcutta Villa or the acquisition and refurbishment of motels. And we have an example of that in what we call Benson Place down in the South Bay area. And that's 83 units. It was a dilapidated motel. We now have 83 spanking new single studio apartments. And it's incredible. It's a gated community. It's beautiful. Again, dignity, a sense of dignity. It's all about dignity, right? And what we build is not shabby at all. I mean, it's in keeping with the community that we serve in a larger way, and also the people who will be residing within those units and those homes. I mean, the again, getting to the economics, and of course, there's substance use disorders, there's mental health unit that exacerbates the situation, right? Those challenges as well, and some of them, happen at the beginning of becoming unhoused. Others develop because of being unhoused chronically, right? And we know as a community that if we scoop of individuals sooner rather than later, that it's less costly. The interventions are less costly, and we're most effective. Once people are chronically homeless, and some have been, it's a heartbreaking, especially seniors who are out there. The population is aging, and we see it, and the seniors have unique needs. As an example, people are out there a long period of time. Oh my gosh, they're ravished by homelessness. By the way, the mortality rate is 20 years
Of
20
course it
years
is.
basically. I mean, so if you're 50 years of age and you've been chronically homeless, it's as if you're 70, right? So a big deal.
But two
Yes.
thoughts. One is the beauty of the work that you're doing is extraordinary and also unfair that a social care organization would be taking on such a significant scope of responsibility.
Right.
This is what I mean when I say, as advocates, there's opportunity for us to raise the flag and say, we need corporate support, we need private sector support, and we need government support to model very similar approaches to the ones that you're implementing. And the other thought is, when kids grow up in an environment where people are all sharing the same neighborhood and are dealing with different circumstances within their homes, they have access to examples that can be life changing for them. Which is why concentrating poverty through housing developments is a bad idea, and creating mixed income living environments is much more solution oriented. So that's
Absolutely.
my soapbox. I will also say there's only so much any of us can do. And so the fact that we're focused on students is where I, direct my attention. But those of us who do this work have thoughts, opinions, and ideas that I think all of us would be so willing to share with those who are making decisions in the bigger
Absolutely.
pictures.
And we share it sometimes when we're not even asked, right? Because
That's
and that's where
right.
advocacy comes in.
Right.
Because it's
But
important.
ask us.
But
We
no,
have
I know,
ideas.
I know, I share that sentiment. That's why the developments that we have, the housing developments that we have, are mixed use, right? Because of that very reason, right?
Right.
So that we know, as an example, each of them have a PSH aspect, which is people who do need extra care and comprehensive services. They suffer from some level of disability, be it physical, emotional, psychological substance use challenges as an example. But then there's also those who are not. It's affordable housing.
Mm.
And why? Because our mission is either to prevent or end homelessness. So we catch people before they fall onto the streets and become unhoused, right? And that's an important element as well. So I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to hear if you could give just a bit of advice to an educator who's listening right now, just one little token of how they can better serve their unhoused students. What would you say?
I'm going to turn this into a commercial.
Okay.
So, what's next for Monarch School project is the codification of our work and the development of a training center called Monarch Nexus for educators and student-facing professionals to come and learn from our methodology.
Wow.
What we do is not necessarily proprietary in its individual form, but collectively, it's extremely uncommon.
Hmm.
We combine 3 core practices. That's really what it comes down to. We're trauma-informed, we're strength-based, and we are restorative. And we can teach teachers how to deliver that kind of leadership in their classrooms in a way that's healing for all kids, not just for unhoused kids. It allows you to connect with them differently. It avoids punitive response to behavioral disruption, and it helps them feel like individuals, all of them. And every single one of our kids would benefit from that kind of learning environment.
Absolutely.
Really has a tremendous impact on kids who are dealing with complex trauma. But guess what? An ordinary kid is always going to benefit
Yes.
from a teacher that understands how to talk to them.
Mhm.
So, my advice to teachers and student facing professionals is come and see what you might learn from the Monarch School project after nearly 40 years of existence, 40 years of evidence of the impact of our work, and take it back to your school site to develop your skills as an educator.
Beautiful.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you. I applaud you for that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's our version of scaling, right? We can't throw up a bunch of new Monarch schools,
Right.
but we can teach people how to do
Right.
what we do so effectively.
Mhm.
That's
And you're
what
the
it's all
ones.
about.
You're definitely the ones with the expertise who should be
We didn't
teaching.
mean to,
Mhm.
right? 30, 40 years ago, but here we are. And we do have a scope of expertise that we are more than willing to share at this point. So,
And you don't have to
Beautiful.
go very far because even in this region, right, in Southern California,
oh, yeah,
there's a lot of benefit to be had here, but then across the nation.
absolutely. There are
That's right.
23,000 unhoused kids
Mhm.
just in the San Diego County
Mhm.
Right,
school
right.
community.
Mhm.
Just here. If we just started in our backyard, what could it mean?
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, before we end the show, I have one more question. What is the role of the local community in supporting the efforts in each of your organizations, and how can people get involved?
Mm.
You go first.
All right.
Ladies first. Okay.
We have myriad ways to be supportive of our community and our population. I always start, though, by saying be advocates.
Mm.
It's important for people to understand the underlying conditions that cause and perpetuate homelessness in our region. And it's important to be able to speak to those issues to power and also to your neighbors because it's the only way to change the perspective.
Mm.
So there's that. There's also volunteer opportunities that have to do with helping us do the job that we do. For example, reading remediation is really critical to our learning environment. So many of our students are behind in their reading capacity because of the mobility of their early years.
Mm.
And if a kid can't read at grade level by 4th grade, they're going to have a really hard time learning.
Mm.
So volunteering your skills, learning from us how to be a literacy educator, for example, is a great way to volunteer your time and do something potentially life-changing for students. And then, of course, we have lots of things we need, right? Our students are always needing stuff like belts and socks and feminine hygiene products. So check us out, check out our website and give what you can. And also, if you got extra money, we wouldn't mind taking it off your
Right,
hands.
right. That's great.
We are not supported by the school district. That, by the way, people often think because we're a school, we're funded by the school. We are not. We raise every dollar we spend on our programs.
Wow.
Right. That's great. Those are the 3 elements, right? Advocacy is so
Mhm.
very, very important. In fact, we have some government funding, and some of that was going to be cut recently. And we got mustered support across the board, across the community, and they showed up at the city council meetings in force right? Advocating, basically. And as a result, the dollars were restored.
Right.
Because that's a perfect example. Volunteering.
Right.
We have 5,000. We're blessed with 5,000 volunteers this past year, right? It was $1 million worth of services that they provided over many, many hours.
Wow.
As you can imagine, it's a big deal. I mean, it's nothing to be sneezed at, right? I wouldn't have been able to pull additional dollars to be able to provide those services, from serving meal to serving as grandparents who hold the babies in the preschool, to so many things. And every volunteer always comes back and says that they get so much more than they feel they give in the whole process. And then philanthropy, the reality is that the bulk of our money, the funding that we have, is philanthropic in nature, right? So the community, we've been blessed to have a community that really believes in our mission. They love our successes and the difference that we're making, not only in the lives of those who we serve, but also at the community as a whole, right? And because the community as a whole becomes healthier, as Afira has mentioned. And so this is those are the key elements, right? And so we cannot stress it enough. And just most recently, I know we're ending. I mentioned detox at the beginning. I'm talking more and more detox, because this is an element that really has not been utilized for our population as much as it needs to be, right? Across the entire county, there's 78 detox beds, 2 of which are in the city of San Diego, none of which basically are going to our population. And so we made a commitment just recently that we're going to deploy, we're going to repurpose some beds, 45 beds, focus on detox, right? We're as excited as could be about it. And those 45 beds, this program's about 14 days long. So they'll turn over throughout the month. Hopefully we'll serve 80 to 90 individuals. Not hopefully, we will. And then we have recovery beds. We're going to have 250 recovery sober living beds, right? So there's a nice progression. But we're uniquely positioned because we have a federally qualified health center there, because we have behavioral health specialists there, right? This is going to be a game changer.
I love how passionate you are.
Oh my God. And likewise. I mean,
Yeah.
no, but you
You're an
have to be
inspiration.
passionate
Yeah.
about this, because I mean, it's just, I can't say enough. And it has to do with dignity. At the end of the day, it has to do with
all
dignity.
about dignity.
It's meeting them where they are, providing what they need because of dignity. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about. Not government funded. None of it is, by the way.
Mhm.
So we'll need $1.5 million to establish this program by the first quarter of next year. And with God's help and to his glory, we're going to get it done. People are going to step up. I'm really excited. There's no doubt they're going to step up. They're going to see that this is absolutely necessary. I mean, these are individuals who are cycling in and out of these beds now, but we're not getting to the fundamental problem, and that's their substance
we
use
live in a
challenges.
beautifully generous community when there's understanding and awareness of the work that we're doing and that we're doing collectively. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I know that you'll get it done,
Yeah.
and we'll get
Yeah.
it done.
We'll get that,
We
and we'll
will.
talk detox more at
Yeah.
in another
We
segment.
will.
But
We will.
Maggie knows I can't help it. In any circumstances. I'm bringing this program up more and
Yeah.
more because it's just so necessary, right? So
Well, what an honor to sit here with the two of you, advocates, movers and shakers who are out there really doing it. So thank you so much for being
Afira,
here.
thank you. Been looking forward
Thank
to
you.
this. It's been great. Thank you.
I'm honored to be here, and I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you for creating the platform.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining in the conversation. Homelessness is a human story, and Father Joe's Villages is more than a service provider. We're a movement and a catalyst for change. Join us on our next episode as we bring you the conversation again on more important issues and solutions. To learn more about the Monarch School, visit monarchschools.org. And for Father Joe's Villages, visit neighbor.org. Until next time, take care. How will you get involved? Join us and take action for our neighbors in need. Father Joe's Villages is rebuilding lives, and you can make a difference. Whether it's through cash donations, volunteering your time, contributing home goods or clothing, shopping at our thrift stores or online, or participating in planned giving, there are numerous ways to get involved. Take action today at neighbor.org, because together we are all neighbors helping neighbors.